Hey, I'm Patrick Escolas with another episode of Tire Tracks, a Banyan technology podcast. And with me here, I'm happy to have Trey Griggs of the Beta Consulting Group, as well as the host of his own Standing Out podcast. Hey, Trey, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's nice to be with you, Patrick.
Hey, it's very nice to meet you. Let me do my little, electronic handshake there. That probably was as corny as it
A little
felt.
fist bump
Yeah,
there. There you
well, I
go.
like the fist bump better. Yeah, right into it. There we go. So, Trey, thanks for joining us today. So just to kind of get into this a little bit, we were just talking about the benefits and kind of the transitions of being your own boss and, how to deal with that guy. But what is it that you're doing now? What is the Beta Consulting Group? Give me a little bit about that. And then, of course, I'm going to ask about the podcast too, but maybe they're connected.
Yeah, well, it is a pleasure to be here. And again, excited for what you guys have accomplished at Banyan. I've been following you guys for a long time. And so I'm glad you guys started a podcast. So kudos to you on that. And just thank you for asking me to be a part of the show. As far as what we do at Beta, you're familiar with this. You know how organizations often struggle to hit revenue goals. When it happens, a lot of times they struggle with tough conversations that they have to have. Sometimes they have to let people go. Morale tends to go down. Turnover tends to go up. All those things are all negative. And so as a 12-year sales and marketing veteran in logistics industry, I assess and improve an organization's sales and marketing outcomes so they can exceed their revenue targets. So if somebody asks, what do you do? I'm a sales and marketing consultant specifically for logistics companies, freight brokerages, technology companies within the logistics space.
And how'd that come about? Is this something you had been doing for a long time and finally decided to do it on your own, or you were in the meat and potatoes of it on the other side? How does that? You woke up the other day and you go, man, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I wish that there was that much clarity, but that's not how it worked out. It was quite the evolution. I started my career in logistics at DAT back in 2012 as an
Okay.
inside sales rep, selling to mainly carriers and some new brokers, the basic load board stuff, and spent 4 years with them. Got promoted along the way, 18 months into the enterprise team, started working with freight brokerages, larger freight brokerages and organizations, and just started to see the larger, pie that's out there, larger puzzle that's out there in terms of logistics and supply chain. After 4 years, I thought that I could, do better doing something else. I was a young sales guy that, didn't know how to handle challenges. And so I left and I went to a TMS. I got to see that side of the business. I left there and went to Trucker Tools, got to see the tracking side of the business.
Okay.
I then went to Hub Tech for 6 months, and then I went to Lean for about 20 months on the staffing side of the business. So I look back on my career and I've had a lot of diverse opportunities. I see that as actually helping me quite a bit now where I can help out in many ways. But one thing I noticed along the way is when I was at DAT, they had great marketing in place. They had great sales training, and I thrived.
Hey.
When I went to other organizations that didn't have that, I struggled. And there were times where, as a sales rep, instead of selling, I was building processes that should have already been built. I was creating a slide deck to be effective in that way. I was training a new rep instead of a leader training a new rep. I was making changes to the CRM to make automations and workflows better, which are all important things. But as a salesperson, I'd like for those to already be done so that I can just do my job and be effective. And I just noticed a trend that a lot of companies really struggle getting their sales and marketing from a foundational level in place to allow their people to really thrive and be successful. And here's the analogy that I'll use. I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm a Patrick
Well,
Mahomes fan.
that's really easy to be coming from the guy
It
from
is right now.
Cleveland
Well,
over here.
it,
Yeah.
it wasn't 20 years ago. Listen,
Okay.
it wasn't 20 years ago, right?
Whatever you say.
There was a 50-year stretch before between Super Bowl wins, but in that stretch, we'd only won 3 playoff games. So think about that. Patrick Mahomes has already won like 9.
Yeah.
So
When you guys are done with him, send him to Cleveland.
that's right, exactly.
We'll take the old Patrick Mahomes. That's fine. That'll still be better than most of our
You'll
situations.
take the 40-year-old. We'll give him another shot.
That's
So
fine.
my point of the analogy was this: is Patrick Mahomes the same Patrick Mahomes that we know of today if he got drafted by the New York Jets? And I don't think so. The New York Jets have gone through coaches. They have in the past. It's like in the last 5 years. They've had just a dysfunctional organization overall. They haven't won in a long time. They didn't really have an identity. Like you put a great player like Patrick Mahomes in that, is he still great? Or is part of Patrick Mahomes' greatness the fact that he's in the Chiefs offense with Andy Reid? I think it's both. And so from a sales perspective, you get a really high-performing sales guy to come into an organization and you don't have a good structure in place or good processes, that guy's going to get frustrated. That gal's going to leave. They're going to get burnt out because like I'm here to sell it. you're not ready for it.
No, I
So
was.
that's what I do.
As you were talking about it earlier, I'm in sales myself, and it's not just because I have such a great haircut, but it's
You
one
do
of
have a
those things.
solid beard.
Yeah,
Listen, the beard is
as
solid.
as you get older, the hair just migrates down. It's weird. My wife tells me I should have never had hair in the first place, and it's weird to tell her I had hair longer than I haven't without feeling emotionally broken about it. But no, I've been at organizations where there isn't a great marketing team or there isn't a great sales process, and you do feel like you're underwater. Or like you said, you spend your time training the other staff without getting a different title or a pay compensation for those those selling hours that you're wasting on non-selling
Right.
time. Not to pitch too much here, and not just because they set this up for me, but Banyan's marketing team is one of the first where I came in and we had more leads than we knew what to do. Well, it was one of those situations where I barely have to prospect. I just
Right.
need to
What a
handle what's
great problem
oh
to
my
have.
oh my God. I have never been in about 4 or 5 different organizations, and this has never happened. And I'm like,
Yeah.
is this real? This is
Is
how
this
it's
real?
this is how it's I thought I'm just supposed to be hating marketing because they're not giving me enough leads, and they're supposed to hate me because we're not doing enough with leads, and that's the eternal struggle of sales and marketing. No, apparently we can live together peacefully. Which, like I said, that was
Which they
news.
should.
Yeah.
Sales and marketing is really one team, in my opinion. It's not two teams. It's one team working together in distinct ways to drive revenue. And that's what I try to, communicate to my prospects and my customers is this has to work together. And in my past organizations, I went into situations where they didn't have any automation or workflow set up in the CRM. They didn't have an agreement platform to make it easy to send out and have a customer sign an agreement to get started. They didn't have marketing collateral. The slide deck wasn't good at all. And when you start to build those things out, what we were able to do was take the sales reps from closing 1 or 2 deals a month that were roughly 5,000 to 7,500 in monthly recurring revenue to somewhere between 8 to 10, even up to 15 deals a month consistently with higher deal values because they were spending more time with customers and prospects and less time on all the other crap that salespeople often have to do.
Not
when you
wasting
build
time
that
on
structure,
process and
exactly,
making the content and just going,
right,
put a new name on it, put a new number on it, and spit it out.
exactly, and you start to build a brand where the customers that do come in, the prospects that do come in, are educated about what you do, and they have a higher level of intent to buy because they understand that your solution can solve their problem. That's the function of marketing, is to get those questions out of the way, so that when they come to a salesperson, they can identify exactly what the needs are and close them.
Now, is that something that it starts at the marketing level and then trickles down to the sales? Because, like you're saying about implementing automation and something like that, how does that happen? Or is it just, do you look at they don't have automation right now, or do you go in and look at the tools they have, or it depends on what you're walking into?
In my opinion, it all starts with the messaging. It all starts with the messaging. Because the messaging that you agree upon as an organization, that everybody starts speaking the same language, becomes really powerful. And what I rely on is the power of story. So I'm a story brand certified guide. I help clients create that story brand framework, which, let me just put it this way. You know how it's so easy to get distracted with your phone, or something pops up on your TV or your computer or something. It's really easy to just get distracted in life and daydream and do all those kind of things.
New shiny
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
especially for some of us sales guys, it's really easy to get distracted. But it's easy to get distracted in life. But think about this: if you go to a really good movie, did you go see Top Gun Maverick?
I loved it. Yes.
Yeah, me too. So let's just use that for example.
So entertaining. Yep.
You go to Top Gun Maverick, you don't even remember that you have a phone for 2 hours. You don't think about what you're going to eat afterwards. You don't think about what's going to happen that night or how bad that meeting was yesterday at work. You don't think about any of that because the story, the power of the story and the message has really captivated your mind and drawn you in to where you want to be a part of it. I mean, I've watched Top Gun Maverick probably 10 times. We own it now. And I've watched it many times, and I feel the same way every time, even though I know what's going to happen. It's the power of story. Hunger Games will be the same way. Harry Potter, the same way. We've watched these movies over and over. We know what's going to happen, but for some reason it draws us in, makes us want to be a part of it, and blocks everything else out. Isn't that not what you want your prospects to feel when they're working with you?
I mean, absolutely. But how do I make a Banyan Top Gun movie? How does it
doesn't have to be a Top Gun movie, right?
So what is? I know. I understand exactly what you're saying. I can't get enough stories. I consume media, books, anything, and I love that feeling of being pulled in. How do you do that for something on the marketing, product, sales side? If it's logistics or manufacturing, this isn't hot, sexy jet fighters and, topless volleyball scenes. This is, hey, we can take your rates this way, or we can bring lean distribution or logistics into your workflow. How do you come up with a story that's really going to grab people at that point?
Because it's not about the fighter jets. It's not about the details of the movie, even though those things are great, right? It's the fundamental elements of story that you use to then draw your prospects in. And it really starts with simply, you need to have a character, and that character is your prospect, okay? So you have a character who has a want. Do you know what your prospects actually want, right? They have a problem that's keeping them from getting that want. And then you position your company as the guide, not the hero, as the guide who helps them get what they want.
So you're
leading together,
you're leading the montage. You're leading
correct.
that training montage. Okay.
You create a plan, a real simple plan for them to follow. You call them to action. You share with them a picture of what it's going to look like when they succeed. You share with them a picture of what it could look like if they don't.
And you make them the hero.
And when you incorporate those elements, people want to participate in that way. Think about it like this. So I'll use this example. This will be really easy for everybody to understand. If we do use a movie like Hunger Games, who's the character? Katniss Everdeen. What does she want? She wants peace and no problems from the Capitol. What's the problem? The Capitol's overbearing. And she's now in this thing called the Hunger Games where she has to fight to the death to try to preserve some of these things or to influence some of those things. Yeah. She needs a guide. Who's the guide? Haymitch. Why is he the guide? Because he's won the Hunger Games before. So he has empathy with her, and he has authority to tell her how to do it. So he provides a plan. What does she need to do? She needs to get sponsors. She needs to become friendly. She needs to become less of a jerk, right? She needs to stick to her strengths, which is the bow and arrow.
Do you play Hunger Games and go through this? Is this part of the process as you're consulting?
For anybody who's listening to this, you probably have story ruined for the rest of your life. You're going to watch every movie now going, okay, that's the character. All right, cool. That's the problem. Okay, where's the guide? Okay, that person's the guide. Because that's how a good story works.
My wife already can't watch movies with me because I'm one of those that halfway through you're like, oh, that's the bad guy and this is what's going to happen. And she's like, God damn. But no, I just rewatched Hunger Games series with my wife for our baby moon. And it's funny you going through this and like, yes.
Yep.
Dang it, Trey. Yes.
It's true.
You're absolutely
so true.
hitting those.
Yeah. So what do we do? So I work with clients to help them create that script, essentially using the elements of story. Mm-hmm. And then that type of language, that type of messaging then permeates their website, their social media content, their slide deck, their customer testimonials, their email sequences, everything that they do as an organization now, their customer service, their operations. They need to be speaking the same story.
Yep.
And then that, again, draws their prospects in to want to be a part of what they're doing. Everybody wants to be drawn into a story as a hero. If you're the story, I don't need to be a part of your story then. You got your own. If you're the guide, though, I might need that. I might need your help to get where I want to go.
I like that. And you mentioned and the social media aspect of it. So how do you utilize social media properly? And I don't want to say something as boring as manufacturing or logistics or transportation or shipping, but I mean when day in and day out everybody's pointing going TikTok, Instagram Reels, how am I supposed to monetize that? Obviously every executive's going, all right, show me the ROI, but is that even possible? That's got to be such a big, hey, how do we use TikTok to make more leads come to us? How do you deal with that, or do you?
Well, here's the deal that I know about humans in general. Okay, humans want to be entertained, educated, or inspired.
Okay.
Entertained, educated, or inspired. Think about your personal practice on social media. Why do you watch Netflix? Why do you scroll through Twitter? Why are you on TikTok? You want to be entertained. You want to learn something. You might do that on Twitter or whatever. Or you want to be inspired to be better. Right? Those are three fundamental things that people are asking for. So as a business, your social media presence doesn't have to be all about your business. It can be about entertaining people so that they're drawn to you to learn about your business. It could be education, thought leadership. That's a big thing that people focus on is, hey, if I've got a lot of experience, let me talk about that experience and follow. One of my favorite follows on Twitter is car dealership guy, I think is his name.
Okay.
And he talks a lot about the ins and outs of a car dealership because he's ran them for years. And so he talks about, hey, it's a good time to buy a used car, and here's why, and here's what you need to look for, and here's what you need to say. Like, I'm following him, especially if I'm interested in a car, to try to learn. But there's all different kinds of reasons that you might be on social media. But if you're looking to entertain, educate, or inspire, or some combination of the three, then you will attract a crowd. And when you have that crowd's attention, that's when you then can talk a little about the problems that you solve.
So you're not actually making commercials per se. You're really
but they need to entertain, educate, or inspire. Like, you can talk about your business. In fact, one of the best commercials all time, and you might remember this commercial, all right? Maybe, I don't know, you don't shave a whole lot, but you do up here, is the commercial that launched Dollar Shave Club. Did you ever see that commercial, Launch Dollar Shave Club?
What happens in it?
It's on YouTube, okay?
Okay.
And anybody can go and see it, all right? It's Dollar Shave Club, and it's their original commercial. The guy who founded, his name is Mike, the guy who founded Dollar Shave Club, he did this really kind of funny, witty video in a warehouse where he was basically saying, we send you blades for $1 a month. Are they any good? Yeah, they're good. And I don't know if it was just such a
just
good
him
clip.
walking through.
Yes, exactly.
I do.
It was talking about his company. It was very educational. It was humorous. And from that one video alone, they got 12,000 orders within 24 hours.
Damn.
From that video.
I didn't know about the effectiveness of that. That was just one.
Incredibly
I remember
effective.
it. Okay.
Because they invited people into a story. I'm the character. I'm the customer. I'm the character. Okay. I want to look good, so I got to shave my face. The problem is razors are super expensive, and I don't make a lot of money. All right. I need a guide who can help me. This guy Mike comes along and says, hey, I can send you razors for $1 if you simply sign up on our website and give us your information. Simple plan. Here's the call to action. Click this button and sign up for Dollar Shave Club. It's all the elements of story.
Okay.
And it was in that commercial, and it was awesome. It entertained, it educated me. Didn't really inspire, but it didn't have to, but it did those other two. Like, that's how social media can be really impactful, is if you're looking to accomplish those three things, one or two of those three things, and then through that, including the elements of story.
And is it possible to track an ROI through these kind of uses of marketing, or is it something that you lean away from?
In some ways it is. So, for example, if your call to action on the social media is click this link to sign up today for my newsletter. That's a common one we see on social media. Click this link to sign up for my newsletter. Well, you can see how many clicks to that website come from that social media platform. So absolutely you can see and you can track those types of things, but not all of it is going to have direct attribution. Let me explain it this way. We'll just use Banyan, for example. Yep. Let's say that I go to TIA and I'm sitting in the back of the room and somebody from Banyan comes up there and gives a little message. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's cool. And then I leave and I go to lunch and I sit down with a guy and they talk about technology they're using. I'm like, yeah, we use Banyan. It's really great. You guys should check it. Oh, that's interesting. That's cool. How'd you guys get started with them? Well, I read this PDF that they sent over. I'll just email it to you real quick. So the guy emails me a PDF and I read it. I go, oh, this really makes a lot of sense. And then I go to the website to learn a little bit more. And then I click on a button that schedules a demo. Now, which one of those things led me to you?
Fair point.
If you said, hey, how'd you find us? I might say, well, I saw on your website, or I might say, I read this PDF, or I might say, I heard this guy at TIA. Which one are you going to give credit to?
And does it matter?
You can't give credit to all of them, but all of them played a role. They all played a role in getting me to you. And that's what people have to understand about marketing, is that in some ways you can give direct attribution to what marketing does for sales, but sometimes you can't, but it's all working together to accomplish its goal, which is brand awareness. You need to become somebody who's known and trusted and drive revenue. You need to be able to convert people to become customers based upon your solution. And that's what marketing is supposed to do. And all of it works together, but not all of it's going to get credit. And that's the hard part, is that somebody who's only thinking ROI, you might be disappointed if that's how you only think, because marketing works as a network working together.
So would you tell a marketing team that to be to less focus on where it came from and the fact that it came there at all, something like that? Or how would you peel that back then?
Yeah, I would not go that far.
The resources.
Definitely wouldn't go that far, because when you find something that works, you want to throw some gas on the fire. Exactly. Yeah. And so one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is they don't ask, how did you hear about us? And they don't make it multi-pronged. So for example, you might say, hey, how'd you hear about Banyan? Oh, I heard about your PDF. Oh, really? How'd you get the PDF? And you might just follow that trail a little bit and find out
I got you.
What actually went into this. Oh, you were at TIA. Cool. Check. Awesome. Oh, you went to our website. Yeah. Check. And then you go, okay, our website, this PDF obviously made an impact, and we were at TIA. That made sense. I'm going to give credit to those three for this person coming in. You just have to ask the questions.
Yeah, because how rare is it going to be that just one single magic bullet brought them
incredibly rare, unless it's a customer referral.
Right.
Customer referral is the most powerful form of marketing there is, because if I know you and I trust you,
I was say we don't get to control most of those anyways.
You don't. Well, you don't directly, but again, that's where I like to create customer testimonial videos, because you're harnessing the power of a customer. Somebody might be like, "Oh, I know Tommy. Yo, wow, he uses Banyan. Okay, cool." I mean, it's powerful. So you can harness it a little bit, but I mean, outside of that, most customers need multiple reasons to act on what you're doing.
All right, I like that. I appreciate that, and like I said, especially now where I enjoy marketing as a part of my team instead of being, confrontational with them at all times. Which is the natural order of things.
Yeah. And think about this from a marketing perspective. Where should you get the best information for marketing collateral? From your sales team. They're talking to prospects. What's working? Why do people say yes? Why do they say no? Right.
I have a marketing team that shares a wall with us, and literally about every time they're about to type something, they go, "Hey, if I was about to say this, does that make sense?" And a lot of times, like, "Yeah, that's it." Or sometimes we go like, "No, don't
that's
do
not
that.
it.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
or don't promise that. We can't do that. No,
right.
They'll come after us."
So if you have your story brand and your team is working together and you're able to create content that overcomes objections. Like if I'm a sales guy, I definitely want a video that's going to overcome an objection that I hear over and over and over again. But the only way that video gets made is if I tell the marketing team, I'm hearing this objection over and over and over again.
Okay.
And that's where the teams really need to work together.
Oh, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Now, that's what you're doing on the beta side, the beta consulting. What's the Standing Out podcast about? How are you standing out, Trey?
Well, this helps a little bit, I guess. No, there's several ways. I think obviously the way you treat people probably matters the most. But the reason why I chose this podcast, and I've got 3 podcasts, by the way, just to let you know.
Okay.
But the one that, I don't know what people know about most. I'll just share them all with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, come on, hit them all here.
So Standing Out was a daily podcast last year about sales, marketing, and leadership. This year, it's only 2 days a week. I pulled back just a little bit to focus on a few other things.
Right.
But what I'm doing is I'm talking to executives who have great stories to tell, oftentimes their journey. And then we dig into something that has to do with sales, marketing, and or leadership, because I think those are the 3 most impactful topics to discuss when you're wanting to promote a business, is sales, marketing, and leadership. And so we talk about that. We have great guests on. It's a lot of fun. And that's been a real pleasure for me. I love podcasting. I love talking to people. I love hearing stories. And I really enjoy being the host because I just get to ask the questions, tee it up, and let them knock it out of the park.
That's why I'm letting you talk. You're doing the job for me. This is great.
Exactly. And as a host, if you tee it up and let them hit it out of the park, everybody wins. And right. I enjoy doing that. I'm on my way to becoming the Jimmy Fallon of transportation. That's my end goal in all this.
So you'll play that guitar with your guests? Is that what you're telling
Yes, 100%. And games and all skits, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we'll have a good time. So that's, if I had to pick anything at all, that's the vision for the future, is to be the Jimmy Fallon of transportation.
That's fun. I like that.
Live shows at trade shows, live events. I did a live podcast in November, and that was really fun. And now I'm starting to get asked to come and do a live episode on stage at TMSA, for example, or
very cool.
Possibly at Banyan's user conference or others like that. So that's been really fun.
Will you wear the cowboy hat when you do
that? For the right price, absolutely. Absolutely, I will.
Yes.
I love wearing the cowboy hat when I can, but I also I got to keep this in mind a little bit. So
just got to put it back a little, a little.
Now I'll wear the hat and then I can take it off. This hat actually works pretty well, where it actually doesn't mess up my hair at all. So
that's the one that forms it, right? It's what you put on
pretty much.
It's wet and it just forms it right into it.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how that works. So that's the one podcast is Standing Out. The other one that actually started 3 years ago is called Word on the Street. It's on Fridays at noon, and it's a party. There's 10 of us, up to 10 of us every week on the show. And we talk about transportation. We talk about politics. We talk about religion. We talk about sports, pop culture. We have a special guest every week. We spend some time with that guest talking about what they do specifically. So, for example, tomorrow or coming up in a couple of days or whenever this airs, we're going to have Pam Simon from Connective. We're going to talk about the Manifest Show.
Oh, nice.
I have different tech vendors that come on. I've got, Lauren Metzen from 123 Load Board is going to be coming on really soon. Don Salvucci Fabio from Green Screens and several others.
Yep.
So we have a good time. It's a lot of fun. It's an hour, and it's really just a chance to bring a little humor and lightheartedness, but also some education to a very stressful industry on a Friday afternoon. So it's a lot of fun.
I like.
And then the other one that I do is a monthly podcast called The Edge. And this is one I just started, and it's to highlight the latest in logistics technology. As a sales guy, I always wanted to get my product in front of as many people as possible, but sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes people don't want to give their email address and schedule a demo and blah, blah, blah. And
the
so
daily struggle. Yeah.
We're using the power of dark social to invite these technology companies on, and everybody's invited on every podcast I do. Nobody pays to be on my podcast.
Okay.
So we invite them on to highlight what they're doing and give everybody out there a chance to watch, ask questions, kind of get an inside look of what's really moving the needle in technology and logistics. And so it's kind of like a public sales demo format, and it's called The Edge. And I'm really enjoying that one.
And as we're talking about The Edge, what do you see within the industry? What technology is really changing it right now? What's making waves?
Yeah, there's several that I feel like have come on pretty strong lately that are making a huge impact. And I'm starting to learn about some that are really kind of in the dark, if you will, technologies that a lot of people don't know about that I'm excited to bring to light. So obviously, Green Screens is one of my sponsors for Word on the Street, and I think what they're doing for dynamic pricing is completely changing the game. And again, I used to work at DAT. I know what they did with RateView, and I know TruckStop, RateMate, and all the other tools out there. What they're doing with machine learning and artificial intelligence with their customers is completely changing the game. So I'm really high on them. I'm also very high on Highway. Highway is about carrier identity. And, one of the biggest issues that freight brokers deal with today is double brokering and fraud and theft. And a big part of that is just they don't have a really solid way or real efficient way of knowing that the carrier who is signing up for that load is actually the carrier who has a truck who's going to take that load. And they're using a lot of the authentication principles from finance to now use that here in transportation just to make sure that those people never even get onboarded. And if they never get onboarded, then the likelihood of a double brokering situation or fraud or theft goes way down, which is also going to help with insurance and bonds.
That makes a lot of sense.
There's a tons of things that are going to benefit from that. I'm really high on Highway. I'm really high on AVRL, my friend Chad Olson, what he's doing for automation in the industry. All those little things that people have to do at a freight brokerage or at a carrier that are just mundane, repetitive, time-consuming tasks, which could be scheduling appointments. It could be processing information or paperwork or something like that. He's taking technology from outside of transportation. He used to do work with SAP and a lot of really big conglomerates outside of technology, bringing that into transportation where it's been very antiquated for a long time and doing some amazing work in that realm. So I'm really high on AVRL.
That's interesting to me because you've just spoken of two technologies that are pulling technology from two other industries and bringing it into logistics.
Correct.
Is there a reason logistics is kind of at the back end of getting the technology pulled to it, or is logistics technologically evasive? Or up to this point, are people pushing against it, or what's up with that?
That's a great question. I don't know that I know the why of why it's been an antiquated industry, except just for the fact that it's kind of been in the dark for a long time. I mean, 10 years ago, if you said, hey, I'm a freight broker, people would be like, what is that? I don't even know what that is, even though they know that their stuff shows up at the grocery store every week, but they have no idea how that all works out. Before I started working at DAT, I didn't know this industry existed. It could be that it's kind of one of those kind of, in the dark industries that just didn't get the attention, didn't get the VC dollars because you need investment to do that. And now we're starting to see that. So now we're starting to see new technologies come in. And I think the winning formula that I'm seeing with technology is the best in class, whatever it is, whether it's in the industry or out of the industry, partnered up with a former operator. So for example, Highway is run by Jordan Graft, who used to be at TriumphPay. So that's the financial side of it. he did work with freight brokers, so he understands that. But now he's got a team that includes, for example, Michael Caney, who has been a freight broker operator for years. And so now you've got the finance guy who knows the authentication aspect of it and what's needed from a tech standpoint, with an operator who can marry together and then talk the language of freight brokers. And as I'm seeing more freight brokers step out of the brokerage seat into a technology provider seat, the tech is getting better.
Yeah, no, that's something here at Banyan that at some point, probably in the last 5 years, someone in development stopped thinking, hey, I should make this because it'd be cool to make it. And someone went, let's talk to the people using the technology and see what they need. And it was crazy how that was a new idea within the technology. Whereas, someone from sales might have been like, yeah, why did we make that product? Oh, because somebody asked for it versus, we thought it'd be cool.
Yeah. No, technology specifically and business in general has to be customer centric to really be effective. And having somebody who's sat in that seat and can say, I know what it's like to take 2 days to process an RFP. Let me show you how you can do it in 10 minutes. Yeah, that's way different.
It's so powerful to have somebody from the industry you're actually building it to and why you're doing it versus just in theory or wouldn't this be cool?
Exactly.
And you brought on a point that I spoke to Chris Jolly about when he said technology, with the automation, you kind of want to get to a point where the automation is doing all of that regular normalized work, so that way you can dedicate yourself to the exceptions or somebody's hair's on fire or they don't know where the truck is, and you can focus on that small percentage big deal stuff. And I hadn't thought it because I'm selling this or talking to my clients day in and day out, just you need this, but that was the first time I really thought about where you need the automation so you do the work that can't be done by automation.
Yeah. Well, it's really twofold, and I'll jump in on that real quick. Yeah. I mean, automation, I think, accomplishes two really big purposes. One is what you just described, we're talking with Chris, which is these things are just mundane, repetitive things that are not really fulfilling for me as an employee. And, it's just taking up a bunch of time, right? But the second thing is when automation is done right, it allows you to scale in a way that up to this point has really been impossible. Let me give you an example. If I have a client that is shipping 500 loads a day, and they want me to quote each one of those shipments by hand, I might get to 20 or 25 of them.
I was just saying.
But if I have the right technology, if I have the right technology, if I have some automation tools and a really great pricing engine, and I put all this together, I can now quote all 500 with good pricing and have a much higher chance of winning the freight and getting more business that I just physically could not do because I didn't have the right technology. So, technology should take away all the just, mindless stuff that we do. And it should allow us to do much more than we can do on our own. And when it does that, that's when it's really effective and it's worth investing in.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir here.
Exactly.
as you can tell, yes. But no, that's kind of amazing to me, just thinking about. I know technology do more with less, and I think that especially now, where across the board it's harder to get employees left and right, and yet you're trying to push for more profits from any organizational standpoint. How do you get to that point? I guess I have a question for you. As you're consulting and as you're bringing these ideas and the storytelling and the automation and getting these processes, what are some of the biggest obstacles you see as you're trying to get things that way? Is it internal pushback from people who don't want to change, or is it defining what that message is, like we talked about before? What do you see, or is it varied across the board?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that in a couple ways. So I think the biggest pushback to working with a consultant is a couple of things. One, possibly they've had a bad experience with a consultant. And anytime you have one bad experience, you tend to just throw that on every consultant in the future. It's kind of what we do as humans.
Who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Exactly.
So bad?
If you have a bad plumbing experience, you might not want to hire any more plumbers. If you have a bad experience with the doctor, you don't want to go back to the doctor. I mean, it's just kind of human nature. That happens often. I think the other thing too is when you hire a consultant, you're investing money to pay somebody to come in and fix something that's broken. Sometimes people don't want to deal with the fact that things aren't working. Sometimes they don't want to pay for something if there's not a direct impact on revenue. And sometimes consultants come in and need to give a perspective and a strategy and give you a game plan, but they're not actually implementing the game plan, or maybe they're implementing part of it. But you have to at least identify the problem and figure out what the solutions are. And sometimes they don't have time for that. That's another issue, is just a time issue. Like, I know I need this, but when am I going to do it?
Right.
Or I don't have time to work with a consultant, I know I need it. What's funny to me is it kind of is the Dave Ramsey principle. Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University class that he offers from Nashville,
Hmm.
Tennessee, it's $100. It's $100. But people don't sign up because they can't afford it. Well, if you can't afford $100, you need the class.
Yeah,
So it's almost like what they need the most, they can't get because they literally don't like it's a
I do.
circular problem.
I get what you're
And so
saying.
sometimes that's the case too. It's like, some of these companies don't have the time. They don't think they have the time to do it. But if they would just slow down and take the time
But if
in
they
the
don't
next
slow, if they
12
don't do
months,
something about it, it's
it's
never
going to be
going
the
to get
same.
better. Yeah,
Exactly.
you're going to be
So
constantly catching up. Right.
it's more of a mindset of just going, okay, I know this is important. I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to slow down and make sure that this works. So
So
I think those are
basically,
some things I see.
before they call you or get you involved, something has to click internally that they actually have the time to do it or go down that path.
They
Or
they they know it's important. Have to make the time for it.
okay,
They acknowledge that there's a problem. That's always an issue. Sometimes if companies don't acknowledge that there's a problem, like everybody on the sales team could say, "Hey, this is a problem," but if the person who writes the checks doesn't think it's a problem, then
then it's not a problem.
there's not a problem. And so
Yeah.
that's always kind of an issue as well. It's just understanding. I'm working with a client right now that is on their multiple iterations of a sales team. They've tried to do it multiple times and haven't gotten it right yet.
Hmm.
And now they're like, okay, we need help. We need outside help. So it's acknowledging that there's a problem and then making sure that the person that you're working with can provide that solution. So that's getting started is really difficult. When you work with a great consultant, you really don't think you can live without them. When you work with a
Okay.
bad consultant, you never want to work with a consultant again.
Yeah. No. And so for something like that, and we're talking marketing and what different organizations should do to help them, how are you marketing? Obviously, you have your podcast, but are you going to an organization and be like, hey, your sales suck. You need me? Because I doubt anybody wants to hear that. I mean, what does that look like for you? Because aren't you kind of, if they're not directly going for you, you've got to be doing some sort of prospecting. Aren't
Oh
you,
yeah.
are you at certain times peeling back the layers and be like, hey, don't you wish you were making the money you're supposed to be making right now? And are you afraid of embarrassing them
Yeah.
in that?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Well, it's interesting. It's been a journey for me. I think I mentioned this before we came on the air that I've
Yeah.
already pivoted twice in my business because it's difficult. Finding product market fit is always a challenge
Hmm.
when you get started, and becoming really self-aware and becoming comfortable with who you are and what type of business you're going to do best leading is really important. And so it's taken me a little while to get to those avenues. So
Hmm.
I have rewritten marketing material multiple times. I'm currently rewriting a lot of it again, and so that's a part of what I'm doing. But as far as that, I would say this: the podcast is certainly a part of it. Growing my network is definitely a part of it. Making
Hmm.
sure people know who I am and making sure that I'm messaging correctly. That's all a huge part of it. The biggest, if somebody were to come to me today and say, "Hey, I'm going to start a business. What do you think I should do?" The first thing I would say to them is take 6 months and build your network.
Okay.
Because if you have a big network of people who know you, who trust you, who understand what you do, and that's where the messaging comes in, it makes it a lot easier to get started. So a lot of the opportunities that I have now often come from people who see me on LinkedIn, people who watch the podcast, people who go to my website, all of that working together. And there's 20 things I still want to do, but it's a time issue. Like I'll get to them. I just don't have them. I haven't done hardly any email marketing yet, which is like a cardinal sin.
I was gonna say, are
Um,
you practicing what you preach?
well,
You
that's
know?
that's the hard part is you've got to eventually get to that. You've got to drink your own Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And as a small company, I do depend on outside resources to help me
Yeah.
out. Because I can't do it all myself. And so I am drinking my own Kool-Aid. I'm not where I want to be yet. We're getting there. My hope is that a year from now, when I look back and I have a lot of pieces in place, it'll all be worth it. And I think it will. But so far, it's been primarily networking and
Hmm.
social media, podcast, word of mouth. That's been the way that I've gotten opportunities.
And that makes so much sense, especially within logistics, because as big of an industry it is, it's a
It's
small group.
small.
It's a small group. Everybody knows everybody,
Yeah.
which is somehow frightening and awesome at the same time.
Well, it means you better do a good job, or
Yeah.
else you're going to get a bad reputation.
Yeah,
You
things
know,
follow you, whether it's a halo or a horn.
it's a good point.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I've been asking everybody that I've been talking to, as far as crazy as kind of things were with COVID in the industry. What do you think about where we're at now, and what do you think within the next 2 to 3 years is going to be either game changing or completely different? What do you think is coming around, or what will it look like?
Yeah, great question. I don't know that I'm great at answering these questions, but I'll do my best.
That's
I
okay.
certainly am
If we
glad
don't
that
like
we're
the answer, we'll cut it out. Don't
just
worry.
cut it out. I certainly am glad that we're beyond COVID for the most part. I mean, there's still some talk about it, but I think for the most part, we're beyond that. Trade shows have come back in full force. I think that people value those now more than they did before because they're able to get out and connect. So I think for the next several years, we'll see that. People I see are more interested in going to trade shows to network now than education. Some people still go for education, but most people are going now to network, to have meetings, to meet people, and to talk to people. So that's probably going to continue.
And just goes right to what you were preaching about the networking and how important that is.
Yeah, it's really important. I see that happening. Next couple of years, man, it's a great question. I just don't know that I'm really good at predicting these things. I'd probably make a lot more money if I was better at predicting what's going to happen.
If I knew it, I wouldn't be voluntold to do podcasts.
Yeah. I do think that we're going to see more companies like what you guys are doing, creating a podcast, creating content, being able to drive the message. Some people say, gosh, start another podcast. There's so many out there. But the truth is there's not a podcast about your company or about you. And I always tell people this, like, you're one of one. I mean, whether it sounds corny or not, you're one of one. Like, there's never one. There's never been a Patrick before like you, and there's never going to be one after like you. Like, you are one of one.
And thank God, because we all have our hands full, including myself.
Exactly. And companies are the same way. So even though there might be a lot of podcasts out there, there's a market, there's a niche for what people want to hear. One thing that's interesting about my podcast is I started the podcast as a way to build my network and market myself. What I learned after doing it for several months is the comments that I was receiving was, hey, I really enjoy your content. Thanks for bringing positivity to this industry. Okay. That was not my initial purpose of doing that. But it fires me up that people enjoy the content because it's positive. And it's different than what Chris Jolly does. Chris has a great platform and he's got his own bent and he's more of an operator and he knows things about logistics I'll never know. Yeah. And he likes to drop a few F-bombs from now and then. People love that. He's got his groove, and Blythe Brumleve is different. She has her way of doing things. And I wish more people would do that because I believe there's plenty of appetite for that. So hopefully more people will, start podcasts and create stories and use it as content and those types of things and network and connect. I think that's going to happen more in the next 2 or 3 years. And then outside of that, I really hope that our industry starts to become a leader when it comes to technology and some of the advances that we have. And that would be really cool.
Secondhand, instead of getting
it would be really cool.
Innovators.
And the sad part is that I just think it's going to take a long time for us to get out of that cycle, for people to really believe that they can be innovative. But we're starting to see, again, some really cool technologies that are doing some of those things.
Well, I like that idea, and I think that's a great place for logistics to get as a whole. So you've talked to me a while here, and I know that people can only do it for so long. Generally, I only do it in 15-minute increments because otherwise we get in trouble. But
I used to have a radio show in college, so I was used to filling time. It was by myself, and I was just talking to the girls up in Ely Dorm, playing the songs that they loved for 2 hours. So
that's right.
All music, learn how to fill some air.
All men's music taste should come from what women are listening to. Exactly. Yeah. I have my own taste, but it only matters if I can get the one I'm trying to talk to talk to me.
Well, let me say this. I love barbershop quartet music, but I didn't play any of it on a Saturday morning in college.
Bangers only, man. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'll let you with what's one message, and you might have hit this as kind of your forecast for the future of the industry or kind of on your storytelling, but here's as we're kind of ramping this down, what's one thing you have to say kind of in a nutshell, either about yourself, your podcasts, or the industry? Here's your soapbox. What are you going to do with it?
Man, that's a great question. But I think if I had one thing I would say to anybody who's listening to this, it would be to really get comfortable with being who you are and explore what that really is. And I'll just share my story very, very quickly.
Yeah.
We all should go to counseling. And the reason that we should all go to counseling is because we all have parents. And if you're a parent, you know exactly what I mean. I guarantee you I'm messing my kids up right now. Their eating habits are probably going to be terrible for a long time. They might have really bad habits around like making their bed in the morning.
I feel attacked. I feel attacked right now, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
No, I mean, it is like we're messing our kids up in some way, one way or the other, because we're human beings. And what really helped me was when I started to look at my parents and understand who they were. understand my grandparents because they parented my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and what all that did to me as a person. And it wasn't, sometimes we hurt people intentionally and sometimes we hurt them just because we're humans. And when I looked at my parents and the influence that they had on me, they did a lot of things well. They did a lot of things well that I didn't give them credit for. They did some really bad things that messed me up. And it wasn't intentional. Looking back, I know it wasn't intentional, but it messed me up nonetheless. And I had to spend some time really understanding that in order to take responsibility for who I am and try to become better. And when I did that, my life became infinitely better. I had infinitely more empathy for other people. I'm able to go into any meeting now and think to myself, man, they might be going through some real crap right now, and I don't know about it. And I need to have empathy for that. So it changed my relationships. It changed the way I approach people and how I treat people as much as I can every time in a way that helps them out. And it's all because I was willing to kind of look into my past, look into my parents, look into who I am, and start to become comfortable and work towards improving those areas that I didn't like.
That was beautiful, Trey. That was an amazing message and not what I expected. So I'll tell you what I did expect you to say. If you're looking for sales and marketing consultancy with logistics, look up Trey and Beta Consulting Group. But no, that was awesome, and that hits because there's going inside to figure out how you view and how you can deal and more comfortably get through and cope with anything that life throws at you is fantastic. Yeah. And that was not at all what I was expecting here on this, but here you go. We'll have our Banyan therapy session soon, but with Trey.
I'll say this in response. I love sales and marketing. I love logistics industry, but I really care about people more than that because at the end of the day, it's about people, And I think about my own company, like who's going to be at my deathbed someday? No one with Beta Consulting Group is going to be there. Probably nobody in the logistics industry is going to be there, but my family is going to be there. Some of my close friends are going to be there.
The word on the street people might be.
The street crew might be there. Depending on when it happens, the street crew might show up.
They might also be the reason it happens by the sound of it.
You never know. It's possible. You never know. But it's all about, to me, it's all about people. At the end of the day, people aren't going to be talking about Beta Consulting Group 50 years from now. They're just not, So
Trey, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. Again, depends on how we edit this, but Trey Griggs of the Beta Consulting Group, the Edge, Standing Out, and Word on the Street podcast, all a good time, it sounds like. And this has been a great talk, Trey. I look forward to following you and seeing what else you put out there and how else you find organizations' way to better their storytelling.
Patrick, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much, Trey. Have a great one, man.
Thank you for listening to Tire Tracks. Watch for new episodes dropping monthly and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcast apps. For more information about Banyan Technology, visit banyantechnology.com.